There is a video that has been viewed tens of millions of times across the internet. A wild deer walks up to a person sitting on their porch, nudges them gently, and then steps aside to reveal a fawn standing just behind her. The person reaches out slowly, the deer watches, and then the most extraordinary thing happens. Nothing. The deer doesn't bolt, doesn't panic, doesn't do the thing every instinct in her body should be screaming at her to do. She just watches a human touch her baby. And if you've seen that video, you know the feeling it produces. Something catches in your chest, something ancient and wordless that you can't quite name. This video is about what that feeling is pointing at, because that deer didn't stumble onto that porch by accident. And the thing that made her stay isn't sentimentality. It isn't confusion. It isn't even trust in the way we normally use that word. It's something older and stranger and more fascinating than any of those explanations. And by the end of this, you are going to see every animal encounter you've ever had completely differently. Let's start with what's actually happening when a wild animal approaches a human with their young, because the first thing most people assume is that the animal is confused, lost, habituated to humans in some way that has broken its normal fear responses. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes an animal that grew up near humans has simply lost the appropriate wariness that keeps wild animals alive. But that explanation doesn't cover the full picture, not even close. Because the cases that genuinely stop researchers cold aren't the habituated suburban deer or the semi-tame urban fox. They're the documented cases of wild animals with no prior history of human contact making deliberate, directed, purposeful approaches to specific humans with their vulnerable young. Those cases follow a pattern. And the pattern tells a story that goes back much further than anyone expects. Here's what the research on animal cognition has established over the last 3 decades. Animals that live in complex social environments, and nearly all mammals qualify, are extraordinarily sophisticated readers of behavioral signals. They read body language with a precision that makes human social intelligence look blunt by comparison. They track threat level, dominance, intention, and emotional state in the individuals around them through a continuous, rapid assessment process that runs underneath conscious thought. It's not deliberate. It doesn't require reasoning. It's just what social animals do, because the ones that did it well survived, and the ones that didn't. Now here's the part that changes everything. That signal reading system doesn't only work within species, it works across species too. Because the underlying signals, approach behavior, body posture, vocalizations, movement speed and pattern, gaze direction, these are not species-specific languages. They're a universal grammar of intention that evolved independently in social animals across millions of years and converged on the same basic vocabulary. Slow approach means low threat. Direct aggressive posture means high threat. Crouching small means non-confrontational. Relaxed movement means no immediate danger. A mother animal reading a human's body language isn't doing something miraculous. She's doing something completely ordinary. She's reading the signals. And in some cases, the signals say something she needs to hear. Now let's talk about why a mother animal would approach a human in the first place, because this is where the story gets genuinely fascinating. The single most powerful drive in mammalian biology, stronger in many cases than self-preservation, is the protection of offspring. A mother animal will do things in defense of her young that she would never do otherwise. She will confront predators twice her size. She will enter environments she would normally avoid entirely. She will override fear responses that have kept her alive for years. The maternal drive doesn't just suppress fear. It redirects it. It turns the fear of losing the offspring into a force powerful enough to override almost everything else, including, in some documented cases, the fear of humans. So when a wild animal approaches a human with her young, one possible explanation isn't that her fear of humans has disappeared. It's that something else has become more urgent than that fear. And that something is almost always a problem she cannot solve alone. The cases that get documented, by wildlife rehabilitators, by researchers, by ordinary people who happen to be in the right place, follow remarkably consistent patterns. An injured fawn whose mother can't treat the wound. A baby bird that has fallen from a nest the mother can't reach. A young animal trapped or tangled in something the mother has no physical ability to remove. A newborn that isn't breathing properly and whose mother is clearly distressed. In each of these cases, the mother animal is facing a specific problem with a specific solution she cannot provide. And in each of these cases, if a human is nearby, and if that human's behavioral signals read as non-threatening, something extraordinary sometimes happens. The mother makes a calculation. Not a conscious one, not a deliberate one, but a real one, embedded in the neural architecture of a brain that has been solving survival problems for millions of years. And the calculation sometimes comes out on the side of approaching the strange large primate and seeing what happens. Wildlife rehabilitators, the people who dedicate their careers to this, describe something they call the ask. It's not a term from the scientific literature. It's a term they invented themselves because they kept seeing the same thing. An animal arriving at the edge of the rehabilitation area, staying there, making specific vocalizations or movements that are clearly directed at the humans inside, not fleeing when approached slowly, sometimes making repeated visits before any contact occurs. The ask isn't random distress behavior. It's directed, it has a specific target, and it stops when the problem is addressed and doesn't stop until it is. One rehabilitator, with 20 years of experience, described watching a wild red fox make 3 separate visits to the edge of her property over the course of 2 days. On the 3rd visit, the fox led her, slowly, stopping and waiting when the human fell behind, to a den where 2 of her kits were trapped under a fallen branch. The branch was removed. The fox collected her kits, and she never came back. Whatever the ask was, it had been answered. Let's talk about what's happening neurologically in these moments, because the science of animal cognition has advanced enormously in the last 20 years, and what it shows is genuinely astonishing. Oxytocin, the neurochemical associated with bonding, trust, and social connection, is not a human invention. It appears across virtually all mammalian species. It's released during birth, during nursing, during physical contact between bonded individuals. And here's what the research now shows. Oxytocin release can be triggered by cross-species interaction. Dogs and their owners show synchronized oxytocin spikes during eye contact and physical contact. Horses show measurable changes in heart rate variability in response to calm human presence, the same physiological signature as social bonding within the herd. Even wild animals in rehabilitation settings show hormonal profiles during gentle human contact that resemble the profiles of intraspecies bonding rather than stress responses. In other words, the neurochemistry of trust is not species-specific. The hardware is the same across mammals. The software just needs the right inputs to run. Now here's something that almost never gets discussed in the feel-good compilation videos, and it matters enormously: the failure cases. Because they're just as real and just as scientifically important as the success stories. Wild animals approach humans with their young, and it goes wrong. The human panics, makes sudden movements, makes loud noises. The mother interprets these as threat signals and flees, sometimes abandoning the young in the process. Or the human intervenes in a way that leaves human scent on the young animal, which in some species triggers rejection by the mother. Or the animal approaches and the human, not understanding what's happening, calls animal control or tries to capture the young animal, which the mother correctly reads as predation. These failure cases don't happen because the animal was wrong to approach. They happen because the human didn't know how to answer the ask. And this is something wildlife professionals will tell you with some frustration. The single biggest barrier to these cross-species moments working out is human behavior, not animal behavior. Ours. A wild animal approaching a human with her young has already done the hard part. She has overridden hundreds of thousands of years of evolved wariness. She has made herself vulnerable in the most fundamental biological sense. What she needs from the human is very specific: stillness, slowness, quietness, non-threatening posture, the absence of sudden movement or sound, the exact behavioral profile that says, in the universal grammar of animal intention, "I am not a predator. I mean no harm. I see what you need." The animals already speak this language fluently. We just need to remember that we used to speak it too. Because here's the part of this story that ties everything together. Humans are animals. We spent the vast majority of our evolutionary history as one social species among many, sharing landscapes and resources and water sources, and in some cases even shelter, with the animals around us. We read animal signals and they read ours. We had relationships with specific individual animals that extended over years. We understood, at a level that was lived rather than learned, what it meant when a creature approached slowly with its young and waited. We knew what the ask looked like because we had been answering it and making it ourselves for hundreds of thousands of years. The feeling that catches in your chest when you watch that deer on the porch video, that wordless ancient thing that you can't quite name, that's not sentimentality. That's recognition. That's your nervous system remembering something your conscious mind has forgotten. A grammar you used to speak, a conversation that used to happen constantly between your ancestors and the animals they shared the world with. The deer on the porch isn't doing something unusual. She's doing something ancient. She's making the ask. And somewhere in you, underneath everything modern life has layered on top, you already know the answer. You've always known the answer. You just forgot you knew it. Until a deer walked up to a porch and reminded you. That feeling that catches in your chest when you watch that video isn't confusion. It isn't accidental. It isn't even surprising. It's recognition. It's memory. It's your nervous system saying, I remember this. I remember this. I know what this is. The deer on the porch is making the ask. And somewhere in you, underneath everything, you already know the answer. You've always known the answer. You just forgot you knew it. Until a deer walked up to a porch and reminded you. So the next time an animal looks at you, really looks at you, remember that it's reading you. It's running its assessment. It's deciding what you are. And you are sending signals whether you know it or not. Every animal encounter you have is a conversation in a language older than words. You are part of that conversation. You always were. The deer on that porch knew it. The fox that led the rehabilitator through the woods knew it. The mother bear facing down the wolf 3 times her size knew it. They all do. The question is whether you do too. The next time an animal approaches you, be still. Be slow. Be quiet. Let your body speak the language it already knows and see what the animal says back. Because that conversation has been waiting a long time to happen again. The deer already knows your part. Do you? That feeling in your chest already answered. Be still. Be slow. Answer the ask. The animals have been waiting. And somewhere in you, you've been waiting too.